Sorry if I, mucked up your flow or whatever.
No, you're good. So yeah, that's all I was saying is what you were just speaking about, like you were talking about losing the eye. Um, you can think about these things maybe in different ways, and they're pointing to the same experience, but they have to be abstracted from the experience and put into language in some way, and maybe which you can unravel it and have the experience. Like it's like a package. Like after it finally clicks and the experience like happens, and you're like, oh shit, like that's what they're saying. Like, oh, that's the third eye, or like that's what they're meaning. It's like I feel like I do feel like I kind of relate it to NI, I guess, or what most people consider NI as like these. You unravel these like images or these like packages of information that's like synthesized like in a moment, and it just happens, and you can't like.
It's eureka. It's aha. It's so
Mhm.
much coming at one. It's not even so much coming at one time. It's been there. You just see it,
Mhm.
and so it's like, "Whoa, what? That was there? I didn't know." It's because your eye wasn't open. You weren't looking. Um, yeah.
So if you the two eyes, your two eyes represent duality. So like yin and yang, one and two. So opposing forces. So like if your consciousness reaches your third eye, then you see above these two forces interacting with each other. So they no longer bother you. Like this push and pull inside of you or even outside of you, it doesn't you're like above it. You're seeing from above duality, from above two,
I
above a divide.
I
There's
have
no inside of you and outside of you. It's all in you. It's all you. It's all happening in you.
uh, I've had these sort of concepts before. Um, Actually, before I got back into MBTI this last time, I think I was goofing around like on sometimes like YouTube videos or some website or something. Basically, I somehow ended up taking some like online test or something like that, have to do with like psychological androgyny. I don't know if you've heard about that. Um,
Mm-mm.
it's just basically, it's like different from like what somebody might consider like outward androgyny. It's just in terms of what is considered traditionally masculine or traditionally feminine. Um, Such things as like being logical. Oh, that's a masculine trait, or um, being vulnerable and accepting of people. That's more like a feminine sort of thing. Like these things that get skewed as one thing or the other. Um, I sort of started to think of it as like the more androgynous types of elements in terms of psychology, as incorporating sort of the best of both worlds, finding what works in one and what works in the other, and then focusing on that. Um, but the point I'm sort of making up is sometimes I'll even find at least what I perceive to be correlations between. Right, maybe it's not even correlations. It's things that I think could be correlations, um, and things that like in archetypes that human beings have, but then also physical things that have gone on. And I'm gonna start getting sort of out there with some of this stuff because it's it's things I've only been thinking about in like the last month or so. But it's like I thought of humanity like in terms of like the most previous ice age and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, you got these big old megafauna roaming around. Like, I think I had heard somewhere that like North America was home to like three different, like, I don't think it's species, like three different subspecies or something like that. I don't know what the technical term is,
Wow.
genus or something, of
Mhm.
elephant, like mammoths, mastodons, and I don't know what the other one would be. But it's like you just have these huge creatures, just these unfortunately large things, a lot bigger than people, just strolling around. And people aren't all that technologically advanced. They're not as together. At least I don't think anyway. I didn't live then. I don't know what it was like. But it's like, I started thinking of that as being like an undifferentiated or even like infant or like toddler sort of state. Like, you know, when you're a young kid, you know, like puberty hasn't kicked in or things like that. So it's like when kids are young, even though there's elements about them that are different, they're still sort of, compared to the differences that are present when they're older, there's still like an undifferentiated sort of element going on. And so what I was thinking is, like, in terms of humanity at that time, I kind of see that as being like a young humanity. You have like all these large creatures around. And then, you know, we move more into like the times of civilization. And you see like violence and conquest and like people forming cities and then forming distinctions. It's not just like humans interacting with other humans. It's like now you're getting people settling areas that have resources, clinging to certain areas. And I guess in my mind, like, it's like a weird thing. Like, even though there may not be any particular reason or correlation to think of people settling down in cities as almost like a physical representation of people clinging to narratives or something like that. It's like,
Dude,
what's that?
I mean, what you're talking about, I do all the time. You're just connecting meta patterns. You're seeing everything relates to everything. Who is to say that this reality around you isn't reflecting your symbols to you? It's not. So I think it's perfectly, if it helps you understand, you know, you could even, what you were saying, you could look at it, you know, like, you know, the way kids grow up, the way they're so, like, young kids end up having these kind of violent tendencies. I work with little kids all day long. They don't understand how to control or mature with their emotions.
Well, I kind of view civilization as more like an adolescent stage, like teenage angst is kind of what I see it as.
Yeah, so I'm saying we've progressed through stages, and it's all, you know, it's all like how you look at something. You can have, you know, it's crazy what can happen. People say like they have spiritual experiences or mystical experiences and they can't explain it, but like, I'm not, like, you could say, it could be something as simple as okay, I'll just put it in perspective. Two people are standing beside each other. They're watching raindrops fall down and hit a leaf and burst. One person's just watching the raindrops, like, hit the leaf and burst. The other person has this crazy strong sensory, emotional experience inside as they're watching this raindrop hit the leaf, that their entire life is as quick as that drop. All their experiences, everything wrapped up in that drop of water, and then it hits the leaf, and it's poof. Like, and who is to say that experience can't bring some type of, you know, knowledge and connection with life, with what it is.
It's
so
like a sort of
it's,
scalar,
you know,
like as above, so below, loosely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I gotta what's that?
No, go ahead.
I gotta get more into, I mean, like, I don't, I've tried meditating before in ways that people have talked about meditating. Mostly it's just uncomfortable.
Yeah. No, don't. There's way too much of that going on right now. Don't even. You know what?
I'd rather, honestly, what I'm probably going to do is I'd rather do what I did when I was younger, which is lay down on my bed and just daydream a lot of the time, because that's how stuff came to me a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But
meditation, the West in particular, recently has turned meditation into an action. But originally, the concept of meditation that came with, well, really it was Hinduism, because Hinduism is much older than Buddhism. But it could have actually been passed down to Hinduism from something older than that. We just don't know. But meditation was understood as a quality. It was a quality of your being. It was a quality that you existed in. It wasn't an action. So, like, yes, you could sit with your legs crossed, and you could be... A better way to put it is to be meditative instead of meditate. Like, you need to meditate. No, you need to become meditative.
I had talked about this in one of the videos I put up. I think it was the INFJ rant one that I did. I was talking about how it's like, meditation, like it. I tried it before. It essentially, I interacted with it the same way that I did exercise, where it was like this warm-up thing, where it's like, but I found I couldn't be like, okay, from 1 to 2 p.m. I'm going to become more enlightened, or like from 3 to 4 p.m. I'm going to have fun, stuff like that. I found out pretty quick that's not quite how it worked for me. But it's like all these different things. Like the reason why I got into like the Germanic or Norse paganism and stuff like that is that from an early age, it's like I loved ideas of like, and sort of also the reason why I like the idea of there being like megafauna and like large creatures and stuff like that, is there's this sort of like archetypal draw that I have towards scholar, like large stuff, like the idea of there being large standing stones or towering forests or things like that.
Yeah.
Of being small in comparison to something. But then also this sort
much larger than you.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not sure how much of it is just stuff that was ingrained early on in life. Sometimes, and I don't get too much into this because I just don't know. But sometimes I wonder if it's possible that if one learns to get in touch enough with their intuition or whatnot, probably more so in their younger years when there's less, noise going on. If there's, I don't know if genetic memory's a thing, like from previous lines. I don't know if that's something that's even possible, but it's an idea that I entertain. Because sometimes I feel like I'll get, or that I've gotten impressions of the past of things that I associate with, like cold winter air or things like that. That I'm like, it just makes me feel happier.
Yeah, I understand. I get what you.
Where it's like, I can't necessarily tie it to anything, but I just know it makes me feel better. Yeah.
I think it's hard. My opinion on that stuff is reality is true on so many levels, So like, okay, the perfect example is, I guess I could illustrate it, is on one level, if we were in the same room, or even right now, your body, you have a fleshly bag, and I have a flesh bag, and they're separated by all kinds of parts and skin and whatnot, like, it's making matter. On another level, we know that there's actually no such thing as a boundary. Like, if you go down into quantum physics, like, there's no walls. There is no separation between you and me, really.
There's like there is a resistance, like with electrons and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's like the actual border. It's not a solid border.
It's not a true. The form is void. Yeah. Meaning it doesn't have a full reality.
Yeah, if you get small enough, those borders no longer exist. You could get
so.
At least, go ahead. Go.
So what I would say with the past lives thing is, all I would say is, on one level, that stuff may be true, but on another level, I wouldn't concern yourself with such things, because there's something other than even all the past lives. There's something that has not been subject to time at all. So when Christ said, I am the beginning and the end, I am the Alpha and the Omega, he's saying, I am beyond time. I did not, after when Adam fell, every man and woman was born of this world, yet I am not born of this world, I come from above, saying every man and woman's consciousness has been born from this fleshly perspective, this worldly perspective. Yet where I am speaking from, where this consciousness sits, this position that I am speaking from, is not of this world. Meaning it is not of any concept that you can think of, but I'm telling you, you can experience it. I'm telling you, you are this thing. And the idea that of death that Adam or whatever had brought on, which is just an archetype, it is an archetype, that this thought form had brought on, killed people. But it didn't really kill, it killed them. It entrapped their identity, and they became a bunch of individual entities.
It's like the story of the fall itself is its own narrative that, if you're
Yes.
not careful, can be embraced.
Yes, yeah. So,
Yeah. The pits we dig ourselves.
Could I get like a recap of the past discussions? Probably good
oh
to...
God.
Went a bit haywalled up.
I mean, I honestly, dude, I can't do it. I'm not saying, like, I can't do it. But if we keep talking, the juice of the information is in the direct happening of it.
Okay.
The recap.
Right.
The recap is like writing notes in a notebook.
No, I don't mean like writing notes. Just different
No,
topics
it's
or
like-
points.
I'm sorry, I was making an analogy.
Yeah.
You're good.
Okay.
I don't have honestly, I couldn't give you a good recap, so.
I don't remember what we were talking about. I just know I'm just hoping it was as good for him as it was for me. I can't say that is necessarily anything.
Does that
The-
happen to a lot, or
What?
The transfer of
explain to
the information is in it as it's happening. It's more than just words, like it's your being. It's more than it's more than just
So we've
words.
you've just been being.
There's something about two flesh bags interacting and coming to the agreement that yes, there are differences between us, but maybe not as many as we think. Maybe, at least as a possibility, there's something more going on. There's power there, I think, for better or for worse. I think, the narratives, as we've talked about, can sort of screw that up. But at the same time, what we've been discussing, the idea of, like the Buddha or the Christ figure, things like that, the idea of there being this, like, archetype expressing... Because, like, my mind immediately goes, oh, we have two people agreeing that, maybe the universe, maybe there's either more to it or in some cases less to it than we think that there is, and that we're all one, and that maybe things are going to be better than this life. Maybe there's nothing to worry about, and maybe that frees us up. Part of my brain immediately thinks, well, then why not take advantage of people if it's all going to end well? It just starts going in that direction, and I'm thinking to myself, but that's still holding on to a narrative. That's still holding on to a fear and whatnot. Whereas if I discard that and say, okay, well, what was the point of why we came together to sort of agree on this stuff, is to ultimately, I think, try to discard that fear of existence. Discard that fear of the fall. Because I mean, in Christian theology, it's the beginning of the book, not the end. And even still, I can't speak to individual scriptures or the ultimate spiritual veracity of the text or things like that, because I don't know. It's just I find that I've been making a lot more progress in situations like this, where I'm trying to discern things for myself with the idea in mind of
You're solidifying your own identity or your own point of view.
solidifying it in a way. I think it's like a graph where it's like as one value increases, another one decreases. It's like,
Okay.
in order for me to fully express my identity, I can't simultaneously be embracing the narratives of what I think my identity is.
Yep.
So.
One thing that
Sorry, go ahead.
I dislike when people, like, say there is an afterlife, there could be. I'm not going to say that there isn't. There certainly could be. But where I see a problem coming in is if people use that as sort of an excuse. Not that I think most people do, but use it as an excuse. It's okay. It doesn't matter what happens in this life, because as long as I follow this set of rules and abide by these, I'm going to go to heaven. So this life won't matter. But then I also don't understand the appeal in constant happiness. Like, what do you get out of that? You guys, I don't know if you have taken MDMA to the or speed to the excessiveness, you'll know that at the end you don't get the same as what you get. If you have anything in excess, then there's no point of it. It loses your fun in it. So what is the point of going to an endless happiness or the contrary, endless hell? I don't get that. And punishing people for their endless, for not following these rules.
And I've talked about this before, where
And is it action or intent as well?
yeah, I've talked about it before, where I've said if I could describe the crux of my problem with the Christian theology that I was brought up with, for me it's that conceptions of there being a heaven and a hell, it's like that's not perfect in my mind, because perfect is bringing the entirety to perfection or to good. So the idea of there being in a permanent state of, terror and death and darkness and stuff like that is essentially a permanent state of failure, because you're not really solving the problem, you're just segregating it. It's like if you were to take one part of society, like, I think maybe, I never read the books, but like The Giver or something like that, I think it played with the idea. If you have one part of society that's like very affluent, very rich, very well off, and you have another part that's just suffering, in that part that's doing well, that doesn't mean that as a whole the problem's gone. The problem still exists. It's a matter of perspective. And it's like, to me sometimes, like, I've gotten downright, like, my poor dad, he's a Christian, but sometimes I'll just bring up things that is like, he just doesn't know what to do with them, because he's used to thinking of things in his own way, and he doesn't get quite as out there as I get sometimes. But it's like, when I think of ideas of like heaven or hell, I think of those as like bad and like carnal and things like that, because it's like it's narrative. It's locking yourself in a single position and being like, this is the outcome, this is existence right here, this is distinction. I don't know.
Yeah.
Even-
The idea of heaven and hell is so corruptive.
Yeah.
Because it's
Are you
it's
in,
always
or are
it's
you
about
out?
the future. Yeah, and it's about the future. It's always, one day I will be happy. I will be really happy. One day I'll be there. One day I'll get there, man.
Yeah.
The garden is here now. The paradise, it's all here, but we just have muddied it all up.
That's
But
the thing
it's-
with consciousness. Like, you need to have the good with the bad, or else it's nothing. Or there's a better way of putting that. but basically, like, you can't see it from, you can't enjoy something truly unless you've seen the other side. Or not
Yeah.
not you can't enjoy it. You can enjoy it, but I don't know how else to put this. But it's sort of like
Well,
not real.
without
Not real enjoyment.
contrast, you wouldn't know the concept of enjoy. You see, you have to have
Exactly.
duality to create perspective.
I
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
the
Yeah.
idea of creating perspective. I've heard people use, you know, the need for suffering and things like that, because then you wouldn't be able to enjoy things. They use that as an excuse for barbaric, morality and things like that. But I agree when it comes to perspectives, um, for that sort of, as I guess the term I'd
There,
use is meta narrating. Um, you know, I don't know.
yeah. This the illustration you made, where it was kind of an extreme example of somebody taking it, and yeah, I mean, people can do that. People can. They're not actually hearing the message, or they don't get it. It's not.
Mm,
That's not
yeah.
what it's. That's not the truth of it, of what's being said.
They're using the tool to their own gain.
Yeah, yeah.
Be like somebody using their MBTI type to explain why they believe a certain thing or they act a certain way, and that's just the way it's always gonna be.
hmm
Yep. Same thing.
ETI for me was a great way to see certain patterns in myself, to become aware of patterns, not to be bound by them, but to break them.
And now,
But
earlier I had a tendency to say, "Wow, you seem really like, for lack of a better word, enlightened." For like an INTP, you seem like really philosophical. But then I'm thinking, I was like, what does that even mean? Like, why am I going into it thinking that, oh, he's an INTP, he can't be philosophical? What? Um, it's like, of course he
I
can be
do,
philosophical.
but you can, of course, you can trace where the thought came from. So like, yeah, you have this concept. We have a concept of INTP that we tend to see and interact with, and then or with any type. I'm just using your example, of course, but
Yeah.
like, and yeah, and so you can see where the whole construct's built from, where it all comes from.
So it seems like the
You're,
power comes from being able to see the distinctions, but also being able to escape the narrative, meta narrate, and get to a point where you can see the forest through the trees. You know, it's like instead of me saying, "Oh, he's an INTP," clearly, maybe he's not as philosophical as I think he is. It's like, compared to me, you've. It seems like you've read. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
25.
25. Okay. It's like, and to my mind, you've probably read up on quite a few things that I haven't. When you're talking about like Hinduism, stuff like that, I don't know anything about it. But it's like, it's not like, oh, I'm an INFJ, so maybe I'm just naturally more philosophical. No, it's like, in this particular, like, if I'm being particular to the situation, you were able to offer perspective to me. So, we still identify as INTP and INFJ, but in the situation, it's like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I would say, I know this is kind of weird, but like, when I say I'm an INTP, I don't like actually think I'm an INTP, but I would say that is the thing in which I express through. That is the filter in which it comes through. But I separate myself from that filter.
Yeah.
But so like, to say, well, I think of it like this. This might be out there, but this is, if we can come to understand that these words that we are speaking are not ours. There's not a, this is really out there, but there's not an actual, can you find the I, the being that owns these words, that's speaking them? So like when Christ said, you think that I speak from myself, but I'm telling you I speak from my Father. So what he's actually saying is the self is saying these words, and just to talk about itself so the self can hear itself. So, meaning, these words are coming from the central being. They're just arising, coming out of it. Nothing owns them. No entity owns them. Not my name, not this being with this name, not this archetype. Nothing owns them. It's arising out of the being, speaking about its own nature to its own being you, guys, you're to hear about its own being. And it because everything is it. And so when the central being and another being hears the central being speak to itself, it hears it. They know my word, Jesus said. My sheep hear me. That's what he's saying. All these things he's saying. But he's not actually he's just putting these into language that these people understood at the time. He's just using metaphors and analogies to try and explain something that is beyond metaphors and analogies. But metaphors and analogies can get you really close. It's like a ladder. He builds a staircase. He said, I am the way. He builds a staircase. And he says, come up this staircase. And then at the top, you got to leave me alone. You got to jump. It's just you then. And then I disappear and you disappear, meaning you and me, we're one then. There's no me, there's no you. You, me, and you are one.
Yeah, I get that. So is he trying to speak then directly to that?
He knows how to speak
humanity
to
as a
that
whole?
because he knows how to speak to that being because that's what he sees in other people. If you are the self, then you see nothing but the self because everything is the self. You can't. So if a form in front of you is, no matter how much it believes itself to be something individual and its own thing, you see its facade, even though they don't know it. The facade doesn't know it's a facade. The mask thinks it's real.
But I also think that we are on top of that. I think there is a something inside us that resonates with all of us.
Oh,
But
no, that's what I'm
there
saying.
is also something on top of us. There is us, our perspective, our experiences that have shaped us and whatnot.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so I'm trying to narrow down, really get your point. So if you think you could clarify a little bit?
I'm saying, yes, there is something inside us that we all resonate with each other, but then we are on top of that.
Just because there's
No,
a facade doesn't mean that the facade's
meaning
fake.
We're meaning some form of an individual.
Yes, yeah, me, I am on top of that. I am built into that.
Okay. You could say that in a way, like the concept of a soul. Okay, right? That's kind of what you're saying, right? Kind of like this.
Well, I wouldn't say soul. I would say
amorphous.
more logical, more we are our experiences that have shaped us, and things that have interacted with us, and that's into what we are at this current moment. I wouldn't say soul.
So, I think yes, okay, all the experiences and the things that I've read and all that, that this body mind has accumulated, I can form words and language and convey ideas in a specific way that only this body has been through.
Yeah.
Compared to you, or compared to Ken, or whatever. Yes. Yes, that's true. But what I'm saying is there is no actual entity inside of it that owns those things. That even though there are apparent forms and we do have individual experiences, just like our bodies being separated, it's an illusion. on one level it seems very true, and it's actually practical to hold it as true because it allows us to communicate and do all kinds of things for this whole movie to work.
As far as like computer stuff would go, it's like if you have a program, wouldn't it be particularly useful if the code in the program decided that it was the same as all the other executables and all the other code that could possibly be, because then it would cease to be that particular function.
Yes.
So it's like, but at the same time, which program owns all of it? Well, you could say none of the programs own it. I own the computer.
Yes.
Okay, well then how'd you come to own the? Do you own the matter? Who made the matter? Who owns the matter? You know, it just keeps. It's like who owns it? Till at some point you get to the point where you're like, okay, I don't know who's in charge.
But then I would question, you know, if two people come to the same conclusion, even if all of they're speaking at the same time and they give you the same points to come to that conclusion, there is still other things in there within our human existence that have affected that have come to us deciding that point, even if it's not, we can't put our finger on it. Experiences have helped shape those, and experiences have helped us understand in different ways to get to that same understanding. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yes.
It does.
It's I get what you're saying, for sure, but at some point, that thing, which is arriving at those experiences, that knowledge, could I say this? It just completely joins in with the big thing, like where there's no lines. You can't say there's it and me. There are no lines. There's no more no more boxes. None. No boxes at all. No soul, no individual, no nothing, no God. It's because it's beyond any concept you could possibly put it in. Any words, any box you could possibly try to wrap it into it'd be such a tiny, minuscule part of it.
But I would still say that's, you know, like, it's still two people with the same opinion. They're a different opinion almost. You know, that opinion is still, like, if they asked a question about that same topic from a different context, then it could change.
Yeah, so you're saying it makes them individual because they have different contents in their mind?
Exactly,
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
They've gotten to that.
And you're right, the minds are different, but the heart is not. So, but I don't literally mean the heart, I'm trying to point at something.
At the human, whatever, we need a name for it.
I don't know if I can come up with a name for it, but I'm thinking of another metaphor. Look at like stars or planets or things like that. You know, you have... See,
the point is, though, naming it's never gonna... It doesn't really matter what you name it.
No, just while we're talking about it, I mean...
Okay. I don't know.
Would it be similar to what people call, say, the human condition or something like that?
Meaning the contents of minds being different? The appearance of...
Same, I mean. Like the what makes us all connect.
What makes us all the unifying factor?
Yeah, the unifying factor, yeah.
I mean, that's what people have called God, or many things. The soul, the Atman in Hinduism, they call it the Atman.
I think the soul has a bad connotation to it because it's
if
like
you
it's
look through it,
and I wouldn't call it spiritual myself. I would call it more of that's just because of the way our brains work. That's what we biologically.
What do you
we
want
have
to call it?
I don't know. I don't know what I want.
If you could just apart from whatever anyone else would think, what do you want to call it? Well, you want to call it Bob? It's called Bob. Bob's just Bob. Bob serves a function. What's the point of Bob? Bob asks
if we're gonna start preaching this, you know, if we're gonna start our own church and whatnot, like
Or
the
not.
MBTI.
Trust me, I'm not getting into this so that I can peddle more church shit. Church shit will be me trying to get more into the sensory world. That's what, like, that's...
Yeah.
The best way to do it is to be it, so you can speak about it in any context. So you could call it soul, you could call it God, you could call it nothing, you could call
But
it
then how would
Atman,
you
and
treat it?
because when you're it, you can transfer it. When you're it,
Okay.
you speak from it. So the it in other people hears it speaking because it's it. It's you.
It's you.
Okay.
So that's how. Because it doesn't matter what context you speak in it from, what religion or whatever framework you put it in. The framework is only a tool that it's using. It's a perspective that it's using.
I've definitely myself noticed through all of these different religions and whatnot a common thing between them, but I could never really put my finger on it. Like, I guess it's sort of, like, I could sort of see that it was, like, becoming aware of yourself, depending on the religion, you know. I went to a baptism the other day, and they were talking about how, you know, like, if you haven't been baptized, you can't go to heaven. Like, that will never resonate with me. I'll never, like, as
No,
much as I'm
that's
very
silly.
open to that sort of things, that's just silly. I lost my
Yeah.
original point, but
No, you're good. Yeah, I mean, it's just a bunch of concepts. Yeah, like, that's, I mean, you know, for one, what is heaven? Two, what does immersing yourself in water do to you? Now, I do believe the original concept that Jesus spoke of, being baptism, does have merit, but it was totally different than the actual physically dunking in the water. But back in that
Yeah.
time, they performed these physical rituals to mirror these, like, metaphysical things that were happening kind of in them, just to do it. They thought it kind of amped it up. But
Yep.
see, Jesus said, if you are not born of water and spirit, you cannot, whatever it was, you can't go to heaven. I don't remember the terminology he used.
Going by
But
the Dead Sea Scrolls?
what I think he's meaning, the water being the worldly perspective, the water being this human perspective, and spirit being this. If you don't have both, then you're not whole. Like, this is part of. It's the whole thing. You are the whole thing. You are the. In a way, you're not. See, all lines just get fucking obliterated. You are the little thing, and you are the big thing, and at the same time, you're neither. It's all happening in you. Like, so, to be born of water and spirit is to be born of the flesh and water and experience these emotions, these waters.
And just
And
oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Just to show, it's like it might even seem more intimidating. You know, what does that mean? Be born of spirit, stuff like that. I think it was like when I think it was like the disciple or the apostle Peter, like Peter and someone, I think, if I remember correctly. I probably don't, but they're basically addressing this crowd of thousands or something like that, and they're basically informing them, hey, you know, Jesus was the Son of God, and you kind of killed him. And they sort of have all these reasons and these correlations, like these symbolic correlations, and basically the people end up believing them, and they're like, oh, you're totally right, and then they start freaking out because, you know, they're kind of like, hey, we kind of killed the Son of God. That's not something you want on your resume. So they're sort of freaking out, and they're like, what do we do? And the response was, repent and be baptized. It wasn't necessarily like this super negative connotation. Repent, I think, if you're taking it not so much like, you know, fire and brimstone, repent or go to, you know, stuff like that. It's more like, wish you hadn't done that. It's like, just change your mind about it. It's like, well, if you wish you didn't kill him, just change your mind and then be baptized. So it's like even spiritual connotation. It's like, it's not like beat yourself for it and stay in the narrative. I should have done this thing, whipping yourself over the back. It's like, move on.
Yes. You had this model in front of you showing you that you killed your inner nature. So you need to revive your inner nature, repent, come away from your sins, aka just your wrong ideas, your ignorance, your wrong actions, your ignorance. Come back to truth, to reality of who you are and what you are, and realize it. And so, like, the whole concept, Jesus said this all the time, like he gave his life up. He was just a symbol. Everything, his whole life was just a giant meta pattern. It's just he has walked obediently to his own death, seeing it before it happened. But all this, and a lot of people might say, I don't believe any of that could happen, but you don't know what, what if you had experiences, like right now you have a framework and a model of the world and what's reality and what kind of experiences can happen and possibly happen. What if you had experiences that shattered you, shattered your mind? Everything that you think you know just shattered it like a mirror, and you just fell apart. That can happen. That's it. Everything that you try, when people say, like, it's not logical, it's not logical is the tiny little amount of data you've collected in your head, and you try and create a model of this universe that right now we're a speck of sand in, like, and you think you're logical, like, so your mind needs to be shattered, so that is what spiritual experience, a real spiritual experience, when a spirit descends down upon you, it shatters you. It completely obliterates everything that was you. Everything that you think, it destroys it.
Can I ask you, have you taken acid before?
No.
Well, I had a very similar experience with acid. My understanding of acid is...
Yes, I did almost say fucked. Sorry. I had to... I can say a cuss word.
I feel like it
decided
takes away... It almost, for me, it like took away all of who I am for a long period of time. And I was left, like, I don't know how to explain it, because I don't know what parts of me were still left, but I was just left by myself, sort of alone, like, and like it got rid of all your conscious thoughts. So you were sort of
got rid of your patterns, right?
Yeah, I don't know. You just kind of you end up feeling alone. Your constantly, that constant like talking chatter in your mind is gone.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes drugs. Okay, here's my opinion on drugs. Drugs are like looking through a telescope or a microscope. And you sit there and you get a good look at something, but you don't fucking stay there. You don't sit, you go away from the telescope or the microscope, and you go think about what you've experienced, like what you've seen, what you've just witnessed for a while, and you have to assimilate it.
I've heard I've heard it described as, it's kind of like answering a telephone. Once you get the message, hang up.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. But at the same time, I will say I've done plenty of hallucinogenics, and nothing, as long as it is induced by some outside chemical, it will not last. So you're saying you had like these experiences on acid?
Well, no,
blah, blah, blah.
I've done mushies before, and mushies I feel like they affect you a lot more, like not physically, but they affect your state of consciousness more. Whereas I feel like acid affected me more like marijuana does, in the how it changes, like it alters parts of your brain that is working, so it leaves you in a different state, not so much adding things to your current consciousness.
Yes, I would say shrooms are by far my favorite drug I've
I do
ever
love
taken.
shrooms.
Yeah, but I would say just anybody that's interested in drugs, just as like a little caveat, like first, I would say like if you do them in a safe environment and you have, like you do a little bit of
Right.
research and all that, like
Trips
fuck,
it up.
do them if you're really ready for it. It is quite the experience,
I'd be.
but don't think that you're going to get some crazy like knowledge from it, because yes, you can gain insight from drugs for sure. You will gain certain insights and perspective, but I'll just say I've had like quote unquote psychedelic experiences without any drugs, and they're of a totally different caliber. Like they made a much more lasting effect than any drug ever touched me,
And what was that that
because
made the
it
lasting effect?
um a, a mystical a psychedelic experience without the use of any substance.
Oh,
How do you induce those? So,
I The thing is you don't induce it. It
right.
just it comes to you. Like it descends on you. It happens to you. So as long as you are thinking like you're trying to do something, you are in a mode of unrest. And to have these
If I try
experiences,
and
you have to
blank
come
my
to
mind,
complete rest.
okay. So what you're saying is if I come to complete rest, I can be in a trip 24/7. That's what you're telling me.
Mm, well,
No, I'm just
no,
joking. I'm
not
just
a
joking.
trip.
what's the
But
point of being in
you
a
can
trip
be
24/7?
intoxicated on
Just
bliss for
joking.
days. You can be in such a blissful state that you've like never experienced in your life for like days.
I've
Like
had something
it's
like that.
insane.
Like, well, one of the best experiences of my life, probably. Like, I've had situations I've mentioned this before. I'll go ahead and mention it again, just because we have UB here. I've had it before where somebody, like, I prayed something before, and then later somebody who I had just met brought up that thing, um, and I was kind of like, "Whoa, that's sort of interesting." But at the same time, it wasn't like this amazing experience that totally changed my life. I was just like, more than anything, I was like, "Well,
Just
that's interesting." But at the same time, then I started having thoughts like, it's not necessarily indicative of anything. It's indicative of something that I don't know how to explain, but I don't know how to explain physics. I don't know
yeah.
how to explain all this other stuff. Like, it doesn't mean
What
that it has to be
it's
anything in particular. Um,
yeah.
but I was gonna say something else.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I can't remember now. I can't remember,
Uh,
remember what it was. I've had that before, but no, that to me wasn't as big as this other moment that I had. Um, like, there was this other moment where this. Actually, no. It was one day I was sitting on the couch. I had come home, I think, from my grandma's or something like that. I was just sitting on the couch. I was just staring at the curtains, I think. I was like 12 or 13. I just started laughing. I could not explain why. I just started laughing, and I was just in a mode where I was like, you know what? It's good. What's good? I don't know. It's just good. It's just good. Um, I just stayed like that. I just sat there and just sort of giggling about nothing. Just, I was just existing in a state of laughter for about 25 minutes.
yeah.
Um,
You know what all the Buddhists and Hindus say, at the moment of enlightenment, all you can do is laugh hysterically, because that's what no really. I had this
aha!
one of the biggest experiences that I've ever had. Probably the single biggest experience, really, like I guess mystical experience that I ever had. After it, I laughed slash cried for an hour, just hysterically, couldn't stop, just could not control myself. But it was like because everything that I thought I knew had been shattered, and I could do nothing but laugh. That's how great it was.
I feel like I've had one of those moments, but I couldn't even tell you when. But it could have been a trip.
But the thing is hearing these things, hearing about these experiences can actually, it can hurt you because you can't, this is actually, and this is something, you can't want it really, really bad and go searching for it, because then you get in this mode, you get in this cycle to where you're actually hurting yourself. This is something that they teach, like if you go like certain schools of Buddhism, whatever, they've done this so many times that they understand all the hooks, like the hookups, like the grabs that your mind starts making, so they tell you not to covet these experiences, which you shouldn't, because they go away. They happen and they go away. But I mean, they're beautiful experiences. But if you're the thing you should be concerned most beyond any experience is truth, is the truth of your being. If you search for that, the experiences will happen. But don't make the experiences your goal, because then you won't have them. You'll never get there.
I feel like that's with a lot of life. You can't directly want it. You have to go around an experience to find that answer.
Yeah.
Or at least to find. You can tell yourself the answer, but it's not real.
Yeah. And kind of like what Ken was saying earlier with the whole, like it sounds like synchronicity to me, which I'm not. I'm just truly telling you my daily experience of my life. It happens daily, where my inner thoughts and stuff reflect out in the reality around me. So, and I know I'm not separate from this system. We like to think that, like, it's kind of weird how in science we know that, like, everything physically, like on a mechanical thing, is all interconnected. Like, there are no boundaries. But then, like, for some reason, like, within ourselves, like in our head, we think that it's, like, not connected with, like, the reality, like, with the outer world. Like, as if there is some, like, boundary. But, like, what if this dream, like, what if this movie, it's an absolute part of you. So these things that are going on inside of you can reflect in situations around you. You can see your life. This life is like a mirror. So it's showing you yourself constantly. The situations, the people around you, the things that are happening. If you're truly, like, really in touch with trying to be more aware of what's going on in your head and stuff, you'll start to see things like what you pointed out, Ken. You'll start to see things like that all the time. It'll be everywhere. It's like you're turning to Sherlock Holmes, and you're just like, holy shit. And you're like seeing all these things that just, they're not like random events. You're absolutely connected to this whole thing.
So is everything set in stone? Not that it's set in stone. Not that it's set in stone when it happens. Like it.
Either
it's a reaction.
I know what you're saying. Neither perspective is correct.
Okay.
No, you do not have free autonomous free will. But no, yes, you do have some free will. It's hard to.
Yeah.
I think I can explain the free will and not free will. At least this is how I explain it to myself. So, like your type, whatever type you are, that's not having free will because you're sort of bound to those functions. But those functions can't say what your favorite color is. You can't bound that into the type.
I mean, I get what you're saying.
Can you
For sure.
But put it into your own words, Ruby? Because I don't really.
I'm kind of struggling on whether or not my perspective is completely correct. But what I want to say to that is, you could necessarily, possibly wrap that into functions, because, maybe meaning like FI, or meaning a personal value about a certain object, and thinking it's, when you say my favorite color, you have to identify who is the who is the I that's claiming that it's a favorite color. Because
True.
the I that's saying it's a favorite color, it's just a thought. 10 years down the road, that same quote-unquote I could have a new favorite color. So what happened to So the I that had the favorite color at that time that they stated, this is my favorite color, was just a thought. It was a happening that said, this is my favorite color. And 10
Well,
years
I
later,
think
you say, this is my favorite color. It's a different
I
color.
think what I mean is that if you just read about a type, it just talks about the processes, choosing certain things like hobbies or colors. We can all choose different ones.
Yeah.
We're
I
not stuck to all ENTPs like red and INFJs don't like red.
I get what argument you're making.
Yeah.
I get the premise of it, and you're right. Like the systems that these are archetypal systems that are working in our consciousness that naturally manifest in nature, just like a pine cone builds itself in the spiral the way it does, and everything in nature is following these shapes, like these blueprints almost. Our beings are no different. We are part of nature. We're a part of this design, this order. But there's something beyond it. There's something beyond the systems.
An awareness beyond it?
Yeah, because you're aware of the systems.
Right, because you can talk about it.
Yeah, if you can talk, yeah, exactly. If you can talk about something, then it's obviously you're not bound by it.
Yeah.
You can think you're bound by it. See, we get tripped up in language. That's where the problem lies. Because language is creating our entire world. It's creating our perspective, our image of things. So when you talk about something, you can say, I'm stuck in the past. No, you're not. You're right here. You're looking at a past event in your head, and you're ruminating over it or whatever, and you feel like you're stuck in it, and you're experiencing all these emotions, and it pretty much almost is like you're stuck in the past. You're experiencing what it would be like to be stuck in the past, but you're not actually stuck in the past, because at any moment you could just breathe and you'd be out of it. Like, completely stop paying attention to anything that's going on in your head. Pay attention to your breath. Breathe in one time, then breathe out. Is anything wrong? Other than whatever idea your mind might come up with that's wrong. But the mind goes, oh, no, wait, there's this one more thing. It's important, though. I might be wrong on this, though. One more, nope. Shush, mind. It's just,
If only it was that easy, though.
I know, but the point of talking about this stuff is you become aware of it, and then you realize, you start to separate yourself from it, and then you just realize, okay, I'm battling, or I'm not even battling something. What I am battling, though, what I was battling was a ghost, a figment, a pattern, just a happening.
Yeah.
And then it stopped. So the more you start, that thing just naturally starts to fall away. And it doesn't happen instantly, but that's the beauty of the experience, is it keeps, it's like, I don't know, more and more light comes in. It just floods away, starts to light up everything inside of you, to where there's no nook and cranny that can't be. And it's not something that you have to try really hard at. I gotta think so hard, and I gotta find out every little thing about myself that might be hiding in my head. No, it's just learn to be. Learn to really sit with yourself and be with yourself, and the light can work so much faster than your mind, you trying to, can ever work.
But when those other forces do come up, or those whatever they are, that's when you can become aware of them and do something about them. Don't focus on them always. Just when they come up, then you...
Yeah, when they arise, just notice that they're arising in your field of perception. they're an object in your consciousness, and like they're popping up in front of you. So like even it's in your head, but it's still in front of your awareness. So it's a constant practice of finding, in a way of finding your true position, even though you don't really have a position. But it's like everything is happening in front or in you, and so you can't be bound by it, because you are, if you have the awareness that's available, if you're really just aware, then you are, it's happening in you. It's like there's a space, there's space there, or you are the space.
I think it's interesting. Just now I went to say something, but UB was still talking.
I'm sorry.
So then, no, it's not an apology thing. It was just another experience, and I learned from it. So there's nothing to be sorry about. It was like I went to think about what I was going to say, but then I had to wait, and in the process I forgot. Then I thought to myself, man, I don't like it when people cut me off and stuff like that. And then I started to sort of bounce around ideas back and forth, and then I thought to myself, what if it was just okay that I got interrupted? What if all I do is just wait until I can talk, or when I remember it again, and then I just say it then, and the period of time between now and then doesn't have to be filled with me being mad.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
then
that's
I think that's
awesome.
very
then I
common
just,
thing as well.
yeah, so then I just did that, and I thought to myself, the only real slaves here, it seems, is the narratives. I don't think they really get to choose when to pop up. So when they do pop up, you're almost thinking, wow, you're predictable. If you're expecting the narratives to pop up, then you see just how weak and
Yeah,
surmountable
I get
they
what you're
are.
saying. Yeah, exactly. I love how honest you are about that whole thing. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I try every now and again.
No, it's a perfect illustration.
You're going to say something casual? Because you got your mic on at the moment.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't aware of that.
Oh, no, that's all right.
I'm gonna turn it off. Thanks.
That's all right.
See, in the own machinations of my mind, as I start thinking to myself, hey, I feel like, yeah, maybe there was like a little bit of growth or something like that. Then the narrative comes in. Okay, well then let's get on this growth thing, and I gotta say, no. I got my growth for right now, and if I'm gonna get some more growth, well then that'll come when it comes. Instead of trying to be action-minded about my growth. 'Cause that's
Accepting where you're at now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you're
And
catching it really quickly because a lot of the time this stuff spans over a long period of time where you have to go through trip over trip over trip
And
over
that's the
trip.
thing,
It's
is in my mind immediately, you're getting this thing quickly, so then it's saying, see, you got it quickly, which means there's no excuse for when you don't get it quickly. And I gotta say, you know what? I got it quickly now, and if I don't get it quickly tomorrow or for the next year, I got it quickly now.
Exactly.
And in the end, I mean, I'm particles, Why am I getting so fucking mad about all this stuff? It's like I'm literally, I'm made out of the same stuff as both stars and cow shit. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. Is we're
Yeah,
both stars
we're
and
the
cow
whole
shit.
shebang.
We're the whole shebang.
We're the shit. We're the shit on the ground.
The shit on
Badass.
the ground and the sun baking it.
Fucking yeah, dude. These huge, fucking massive energy producing.
Nuclear explosions, yeah. Yep. And then guess what? The narrative's there, and you tell the narrative you don't have any power, and then guess what I just did for the first time in probably months? I took a moment and I breathed. Oh, what was that? Freedom! Oh,
Yeah.
And then right now, see, I'm enjoying this because right now I thought to myself, oh, but look at all the trash you got in your room. So what? I just had a breath of freedom. There goes the narrative trying to tell me things to be mad about. It's like, do I want to clean my room? I feel something in me. I should clean my room. Well, then maybe I'll do it at some point. Then something else starts to feel agitated. Like, well, why do I have to focus on cleaning my room? Well, I don't.
And then I think the
like,
trouble or the next thing after that is like the narratives are gone, and then you have to find your own justifications and your own reasons. Or
something I'm noticing too is that my narratives have their own narratives. Like in this moment here with the whole cleaning my room, I'm pointing to trash and stuff that I got behind the camera. It's like I'm thinking to myself, well, I ought to clean my room. But then there's another narrative coming in that will say, well, how come every time I have a fun experience like this, then it gets followed up by that? That ain't right, something like that. And it's kind of making a point, but at the same time, it's being mad about it, so it's going about it in the wrong way. Because it's expending energy that I could be expending on just being excited to be alive, to then be mad about this thing. I'm like, oh, well, if I just stop being mad, and I start to think about, well, maybe I could clean my room. How do I think about cleaning my room in a way that doesn't make me mad and agitated? I'll get to it if it needs it.
It's the anticipation. You just have to, you'll clean it when you clean it. Don't put any pressure on yourself. You're gonna clean it whenever you clean it, and when it happens, it happened, and that's it. There's no.
That's it. And it's such a weird thing to say.
And then you'll find the. No, you go ahead.
That's it.
And then you find the pleasure and the joy out of doing it for your own volition.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Instead of the narrative.
Exactly. Those things don't become chores.
Exactly.
You do them out of you just do them.
Instead of following this chore, this narrative, I got to be an actor in my environment.
Yeah.
I'm made out of the same thing as stars and cow shit, and guess what I did? Guess what? The cow shit? Well, cow shit helps makes mushrooms. We all like mushrooms. The sun, it lights stuff, but guess what? Neither of those things get to do. They've never gotten to clean their room. They don't have rooms.
There you go.
There you go. God damn it, I love this stuff. This is so much more fun than stressing out about everything. See, Unify says this is why the world should be ran by intuitives and not sensors. See, there's a problem with that idea of ran. It's not that it needs to be run by sensors. It's that everybody should find their strengths, find their weaknesses, and work together in a way that it benefits everyone. So there's areas where things would benefit from having intuitives maybe in charge, but the problem is which intuitives? And in like the situation of Yubi here, maybe it could be said that you're saying intuitive should be in charge for this reason, but it's like, who's been helping me the majority of the night come to these realizations? Yubi. Is he an intuitive dominant? No. And he doesn't use introverted intuition. It's not like he's an INFJ. The stereotype is that it's the INFJ that should be coming up with this kind of shit, but he doesn't identify as that. So what's the common denominator here? Maybe in this particular instance, regardless of his personality type, he was able to contribute, period. And now I have an ability to maybe contribute, period, in whatever way I can. And maybe it falls in line with certain distinctions, maybe it doesn't. Maybe if it doesn't fall in line with certain distinctions, then the distinctions aren't worth having. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just. Yeah.
The joys hit him. Joys got hold of him.
Thanks, Unify. Means a lot.
My nigga can.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm being serious. It's like, and now something I can say is maybe it is an INFJ thing or an introverted intuitive dominant or something like that, because it's like, maybe it's not even that. It's just, maybe it's the way my cognitive functions line up that when I find myself doing this, this feels like liberation. This feels like the point. Like, there's my purpose. There it is, right there. But it's not the purpose in its entirety. It's not, okay, now let me slave away at trying to come up with reasons and points and, let me focus real hard. Maybe if I strain enough, I'll come up with an insight. Or, I need to focus real hard on getting the overview and the point of everything. It's like, no.
Purpose is to just be your being, and everything else will
Ooh, and it seems so weird
happen.
because it's like, what you come up against that for the first time or the first few times, you're like, what does that even mean? Be me, be my purpose.
Yeah.
What? But then,
Yeah,
but then you do it. You're not enacting meditation. You're being meditative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm still chewing on that, but I threw it out.
You're in that state, even though it's not really a state. But
You are.
yeah.
You just are. Are what? You just is. Is what? Yes. I love those sort of things. When I've heard people who, albeit they were coming at it from like the Christian perspective and whatnot, or a Christian perspective. Like I'd hear people who, they try to get in touch with God and have insights and things like that, and sometimes they'd find themselves in quiet times of prayer and things like that. They'd be asking questions, trying to have a conversation with God, trying to ask questions like, God, what time is it in heaven? And they'd hear a voice in their head saying, yes, or now. Just an answer like that, where it's like this sort of like you're trying to find this distinction. Like, what is this thing based on the distinction? You got this sort of meta-distinctive thing like...
Absolute?
Maybe not. It's just, it is. And you're like, well, what is that? And you try to see, even saying absolute, you're trying to find a certain distinction. Absolutely what? And it's like...
I was talking about the, your point of the other side.
Okay.
Whatever analogy you used in church or something like that. I don't know.
I've heard of people just be in prayer or whatnot, just asking questions, and the answers they get are just kind of funny, and they're kind of vague in a way. And I've heard that as like a common theme before, people praying and saying that they, ask God a question or something like that, and the result that they get is this sort of non-distinct. It's like a sure answer, but it's not distinct. It's like they were trying to make a distinction. Is it yes or is it no? And then they'll get an answer like, well, it's all three. And you're like, all three what? I didn't come up with a third option. Just stuff like that. Which I think is cool, because it's things like that. It's like, the goose being out of the bottle. It's the moment where you're like, you breathe for the sake of breathing. Not, I don't know. Okay, I don't know.
Right, let's move on to a new topic. So, maybe a couple of years ago I started thinking like, if there were a God, what would it be? And what I came to at the time, I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain it as well as I would have a couple of years ago. But like, if there were a God, I would see it as being, if it is, like, it would understand or it would not interject. And I feel I came to the idea that if there were a God, it would be at the end of time, and it would know everything, and it wouldn't ever interject I could explain this a lot better with sort of the understandings into why this is, but that's what I came to. Like, if there were a God, it would understand all perspectives, understand that people do things at that time for whatever reason it may be, because that's who they are at that time. So you can't blame somebody, and you can't. Maybe this thinking of
You're
it now.
exactly correct.
Thinking of it now, I think I sort of thought maybe that was like an INFP perspective, because we want everything to be, you know,
It's
sort of everyone, you know, we are the people that say we can't blame a murderer for murdering, which in a way I think that is true, and I've been trying to find to distinct between that, but I haven't really been able to.
But I've done that too
Thoughts?
sometimes. I don't know why. I just got the image in my head. I don't think this is what you were talking about. But when you were talking, for some odd reason, I viewed God as a catcher in a baseball game. Not really. I don't know, like catching the ball. I don't know why. Like that probably has nothing to do with what you're talking about. That's for some reason I got that as a mental image. But was it?
What if?
What?
What if God is here right now and the end of time is now? But not in the sense that the physical world ends. I'm saying the end of your perception of your concept of time and your identity tied with time ends right now.
It's like the end is the answer, but in order for the whole program to run, the answer has to be known to begin with. I don't know.
What you're saying is there is no now. Now is now, and that's it.
Yeah. What would you be right now if you didn't reach into your mind and grab a concept out of it? What are you?
Yes. I don't know. It's
okay. You don't have to. Hold on. Really, do it for a second. Like seriously, you don't pull any concepts out of your mind. Don't even touch any thought that comes into your head. Just let it float, and just breathe for a second. What are you? Without any ideas about yourself. What can you really say?
See, I don't know if this isn't my point of view, but my perspective on that could be, or this is one perspective that could be, is that you are now, like, how your neural connections, that each time you bring it up, it strengthens that connection at the point in time. So you currently is all of the recent connections that you have made and strengthened, and then there's somewhere along that falls off, and they come out of your conscious and go into your unconscious. So it's like your conscious is all the current connections that you have strengthened over time. I don't know. That's just.
You could say here's how I would structure that. I would say that I am not those things, but those are the things that are popping into my field of perception at this time, most of the time. Those connections, those particular thoughts and emotions and particular perceptions that I might tend to be experiencing right now. But I'm still aware of all those things happening. So, like, yes, in a way that is me, or it is what I'm experiencing right now. So I can't experience anything else.
But that's not you.
I am, yeah. But I mean, you get to experience this whole. You get to experience the whole thing, what it's like to be an individual, or to the appearance, the experience of what an individual would be like, or this individual organism. You get to drive one. But it's not you in the end. It's a part of you. It's an extension of you, like a branch on a tree.
I'm sorry if this seems slightly off topic. I was just thinking to myself about how how one of my complaints in the past is sometimes I wish, if there is a God, that one would just come down and just tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. What's like the purpose and stuff like that. I was just thinking about this conversation, and I was like, and just, what we've been talking about tonight, I was like, God kind of did. I mean, right now, it's not like a separate entity called God. To me, it's like illumination in a way. It's like somebody talked to me, and essentially, what I'm going to describe you be like this conversation.
This self speaks from itself to hear about itself.
Okay, let's run over that again.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
Okay.
Who's the first
Listen.
self?
Just listen. Don't even try and think about it hard. Just listen. This self, this central being, speaks about itself to itself.
Me?
You.
Okay.
So it can hear about itself.
Me.
Yes.
Hi, me.
It's all
How are we doing?
There we go.
But no, I was just thinking about the thing that popped into my mind is I was basically looking for another facet of existence to agree with me on the questions I didn't know how to ask. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Say it one more time.
I was looking
It's
for
my
a
turn now.
facet. I was looking for a facet of existence, as in
Okay.
you. I'm saying in this situation, I was looking for a facet of existence to agree with me on the questions I didn't know how to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
I don't know if I'm not a Zen master. I don't know how to do this.
No, I got you. I get what you're saying. I hear you. Yeah. So, yeah, it's funny because the self speaks through these individual filters in different ways, but they all the filters end up hearing each other, and then they'll stop being. But that's the beauty of it. Then it's just a giant play, and all the filters can play together, but they all know that hey, we're the same.
And that's really the thing, isn't it? It's getting to the play. It's like the point where it's like, okay, now that we get where we're coming from, now we can play around with these ideas and these weird concepts like Ubi or Ubi, Okay, you get to be Ubi. Now that we understand where we're coming from, I'll be Ken. Finally, I can be Ken, and then you can be Ubi, and then we can interact now.
Exactly. There we without any actual division.
Yeah. What the hell is this? What is?
It can't be put into words.
It can't be.
It is.
It is. It's like the thing that has always been. I've always known it.
Yeah, when you touch it, you remember.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like snapping to, or like waking up from the dream.
Waking up from a dream.
Yeah. It's like
You become lucid. You're awake. That's why it's realization, awakening. All these words that they try to,
all the
But
words
I still
they
think that
submit to distinction and all that stuff. It's like that's the problem. Were you going to say something, Hayden?
Yeah, but with that, it also, once you have that awakening, it still takes a bit of time for you to separate yourself.
Yeah, you're assimilating, and what happens is you experience your old patterns, but you experience patterns of this organism, and they're never going to stop. That's the thing. See, that's the thing. This organism, this body-mind that you're experiencing, I say body-mind because I love how the Hindus don't separate the two words, body and mind. It's just body-mind because they're one thing. Because, your mind is your body. All the accumulations that you've gathered, so it's body-mind. This body-mind that you're experiencing, it's not gonna end as long as this body is going. So you're gonna experience this whole dance. You gotta do it. You're gonna get through it. But it's a lot easier to do the dance, when you're not just so attached, so in it. You can just kind of you can just move about. It's just
You can be a third party,
You
almost.
you were talking about you still sort of bump up against your old patterns. Even just now, as I was thinking to myself, when you first asked that question, you just sit and think for a minute. Spontaneously, I was just like, yes. As see, I'm applying that thing. And then I thought to myself, oh, that must be me, using introverted thinking or something. I'm trying to subject everything to a framework. That if I inject this particular thing at this time, that's the right way of doing it. I inject this statement to that question, and that's the universal answer. I found that, stuff like that, and then I had to stop myself and be like, well, no, not necessarily. And then there's the other part that's saying, or it's not even, I'm not even going to refer to it as part. Then I say, that I'm getting mad at it or something. There's this narrative that's getting mad at the fact that, well, there I'm doing it again. I thought I was being enlightened, and it's like, well, no need to bite the victory out of it, because look, there's a victory right there. Because I came to the realization that I'm using MBTI terms to explain something, which is that I find myself getting attracted to frameworks. All of a sudden I found this new framework that I think is interesting, so now I'm going to try to apply as many things as I can to it, probably to the point of overindulgence, but I'm also learning.
yeah. Yeah, you're using the system to look at yourself. That's what the entire nature is this thing exploring itself.
I so wanna the thing I'm ready to do next is apply some of these just some of this. Just apply some of this to some of the more complex
Everything
items.
you do.
Well, yeah, but also some of the more when it comes to MBTI stuff, but also socionics, like with Mega Bros, charge functions and all those upward, downward things like that. I'd like to see the distinction while also doing my best to keep in mind that it's okay if I go hog wild with the frameworks, but also understand that when the framework eventually hits the point where it's no longer viable, I'm not bad because my framework didn't work perfectly and flawlessly. Because I learned the distinctions, I learned the ways that, hey, maybe this is applicable, and then I learned other ways that maybe, okay, that framework doesn't really work, and that's okay that it doesn't work because it doesn't work, and what are we here to do? We're here to find out what works. Why? Because, well, damn it, we want to have a good time. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything that you're saying, I totally get and have even experienced it myself. I feel to a point now when I hear people talk, I'm just hearing a part of myself. Because if you're truly aware of all your whole mind,
You see the patterns.
it's all happening in you, all of it. If you're you know what I mean? If you're really conscious of all the thoughts that are coming through, you're doing a lot of the patterns, all the everything you just said.
It's like
thought.
yeah, I guess that's part of it. Is it's I want to learn where I'm coming from, because I like the concepts and the ideas of being an INFJ or something like that. So I want to learn where I'm coming from so that I can properly be that INFJ thing without all these other abstractions mucking it up. It's I don't know. I don't know. This is a lot for one day. There I am trying to apply it to a framework, and that's fine, because if the framework doesn't work, then it doesn't work. Then I
can see you doing this loop, and I feel like I've had that when I sort of have had these enlightening experiences that you can't really, like, you want to put it into words, but you just can't. And you're really struggling to, like, you really want to put those into words, but you just can't.
It's the understanding that I may not be able to do it now, but there's a hope that exists that I may not be able to do it now, but one day I might be surprised in the pursuit of trying to see if I can marry these socionics ideas and, you know, this sort of this and put them together. I may find that at some point trying to put those things together may not yield results in himself, but the process of doing so might spark something that I'm like, that's interesting and viable. I'm going to hold on to that. So even the process of putting those things together, while they might not be compatible, the resistance, bumping them up against each other, is going to exercise my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Which is going to benefit.
Kind of like what I said way earlier with like the drop hitting the blade of the leaf, and like you see this you see this huge meta pattern inside this tiny, inside of this thing that's happening in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're just being in your being, then everything around you, you can relate it to your being at any time with people around you. Like I do it all the time with people in my life. Like I was eating cereal with my girlfriend the other day, and I fucking made some analogy with the cereal, but it lit a light bulb. But it doesn't matter. Anything can work, whether it's MBTI, Christianity, because it's more than words. That's the thing. If you're just speaking words, if someone's just spouting words off, like a lot of Christian preachers or any preacher of any religion, then there's not a transfer of real information. Because information is more than words. It's more than just it's so yeah, what I'm saying is you want to get these frameworks and you can. Yeah, like I read, if I'm with an Indian, I could talk about I could speak all in Hindu terms. If I'm with a Buddhist, I could speak all on those terms. If I'm in a Christian, I could speak all about the things that Christ says and relate it to them that way. MBTI, and anything really that I've come across, I can relate it. But everything
But it does take words.
Yeah. Oh well.
It takes words to get to that point.
You mean to get to the point where they get it? Yeah. No, not really. I know this sounds crazy, but I can. You can sit in front of somebody, and if you sit with me long enough, stuff can happen. I know that sounds weird. I know how that sounds, like, objectively.
Stuff can happen. Oh.
Stuff can happen. Well, no, because sometimes, you might be sitting there just staring at each other, and then you might get an epiphany about something, just because your own brain's working, but you didn't say words, but you were communicating. Because your brain was drinking in information and comparing it to other information. So sometimes words can hinder that process, which is something I'm having to learn about. Introverted intuition is every now and again I need to take time to not do one damn thing, so that I can not focus, anti-focus, so that this other part of my brain can do work.
Have you? I'm just curious. By chance, have you ever guys heard of like auras, or like the concept of an
I've heard
aura?
about them. I've kind of laughed at it, but then again, I don't know anything about it. So why am I
Oh,
laughing?
I've never been able to put it into a framework.
Yeah. Well, I don't like see auras, but like, just in my personal experience, like, I can feel them, like as an actual sensory, like existing object, like really. But my girlfriend can, and of course, I know I'm not her, I'm not looking through her eyes, but can see them, and I can we do things together to try and coordinate like our realities. Like I can I can put colors in my hand and she can see what color I'm imagining in my head and she gets it right. Things like that.
What?
Where so I can push a color out of my hands. I did this thing. I've been trained in what's called Reiki, and so like in monk traditions, it's similar to Chi. So like when people supposedly they heal with hands, so like things like Jesus did, like I did. I've learned some of those techniques and that stuff, and so like I have I have actually like done that stuff before with people where they're not sick anymore. But it's not me doing it, of course. Like me being like I don't like think like now I'm gonna put my hands on you and wizard your body. Like that's not how it works.
Hey,
It's
that
like,
sounds like the best pickup
It
line
should
in
work
the
like
world.
that, though. It should.
You want to be like, hey girl, you want me to wizard your
But
body, girl?
so I guess what I'm really trying to get at is like the things that we think are possible, or like there's so many things that are possible that we're not like aware of.
My dad's had that before. He had a really bad toothache one day, and he just prayed about it, and it stopped. And he's like, it was the weirdest thing, because it's like you're totally
Yeah.
not expecting it, and then it happens, and you're like, what? And what's funny is when you try to replicate it,
Yeah.
it doesn't have the same effect.
No, it doesn't happen because the mind's trying to grab a hold of it. Right? I mean, like
That's
these
the thing,
things
is it's like,
has
oh,
to happen spontaneously.
it's like, oh, that's indicative of something specific. It's like that's the presence of the Holy Spirit or things like that. And I guess the way my brain works is I'm like, well, how do you know? Like I'm not I'm not somebody who says, oh, if you think that you had healing or something like that. No, that never happened. I'm saying I don't know. I wasn't in your body. How could I know?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but it's like,
Which I think that's a good attitude to have because until anything becomes your experience, then other than that, it's just belief. So then that's dangerous.
so that, yeah, basically then I'd have to be in a state of belief that it cannot happen. Rather than approaching it how I try to,
So
at least, where it's like,
y-
what?
the, yeah, you want to be just completely open. If you have a belief that things, if you have a model of reality where it's just super materialistic and none of this stuff can possibly happen,
A narrative.
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You won't experience those things. It won't be a part of your reality.
Well, one thing I notice about narratives is even if something does happen, you may not perceive it as being that thing. You may try to fit
Yeah,
it within the
yeah.
narrative.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Wait,
It's
sorry,
like,
I don't know what you mean there.
okay, so like Salem witch trials or something like that. Witch trials, finding correlations that like if somebody, if you like throw a witch into the water and she floats or like is able to swim or something like that. Like I'm not sure exactly what their specifics were, but basically they had shitty criteria to discern whether or not somebody was a witch.
Right.
And it's like, I mean, it's a narrative bias. It's like we believe that this is evidence that you're a witch. Therefore, when you inevitably meet this criteria, you're a witch. It's like, well, how do you know your criteria isn't wrong?
So,
And it's like, well,
so
because
what?
it's,
So yes. So what you're saying is, if something happens, like say you did have some kind of experience, you could rewrite the what happened in your head and make up a narrative for what happened, and it could actually be something different, or it could be
Right.
right.
well,
Is
it's
that
not. It's not
right?
even
Yeah.
necessarily something different. I think there is a difference between what happens, what you perceive, and then the translation between there to how you sort of cognate it. I don't know what the word would be.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Everything that, like, you ask three different people in the same situation, they'll give you three completely different answers because it's going through your filters.
Yeah, it's like witnesses to like car accidents and stuff, and like how, like I mean, I've heard that eyewitness testimony can sometimes be not great in like traumatic situations. I can't compare. Like, I've heard that. That's a narrative I could go along with. If somebody said, "Hey, I saw this thing," I could be like, "Well, eyewitness testimony isn't particularly, accurate," which may be true statistically. But what about that case where it was totally accurate, or it was accurate enough? Well, then I have this narrative that's not allowing me to see things for what they are, because I'm too busy trying to figure it out as to what it ought to be, rather than what it is.
A good example would be, like, I've heard of witnesses to murders, or witnesses to just violence. So, one person will come in and say, they hit them like 20 times, they beat the shit out of them, and then the other person will say, oh yeah, they hit them twice, and that. But it's your emotions and the other things in you that are skewing your perspective, especially, say, FE users or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is it's like, even with the whole FE users, it's like, like immediately I'm asking myself, would it be FE, or could this be something of FI, or is it like a couple of other functions working in tandem with each other? Like, does that framework work? And then at the same time, if it doesn't, is it a big deal that it doesn't? Like, if Hayden says, well, maybe it's like in FE users, is he wrong or is he right? Well, I don't know. Also,
See,
in addition,
that's so funny.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Everything you're saying, my brain does, but like, I went down that whole path of, so like, is he right or whatever? Well, it doesn't really. On one level, you could argue about it, and on another level, we could carry on with the point. Yes.
Yeah, one level the distinction's important because we are in these flesh bags. We all have our roles, but at the same time, it's like there's another level where it's that wink sort of level where it's like, yeah, I mean,
and
there's
the point he was making is larger than that small
he's larger than the point. So
yeah.
I could get super pissed off and be like, Hayden, what'd you say, FE users? God, Hayden, you fucking suck. And it's like,
I guess just what I'm trying to say is, like, seeing inaccuracies in like frameworks like that, my brain like does that. That's all it does constantly.
And right now I'm thinking to myself, instead of it being like, oh well, you ought to be right if you're going to talk, instead of thinking that way, all of a sudden when I'm thinking about, could Hayden be right or could he not be right, all of a sudden I find myself thinking about the frameworks in a fun way. It's not this chore, or it's not this ought to situation. It's, hey, I just thought that person could be wrong. Maybe they are wrong. Maybe I'm right, and I'm totally not attached to it. It's totally just...
You don't need to find the answer.
Yeah.
You need to have the answer.
Yeah. This is too good. I'm still recording.
So who else is here, by the way? Anyone else got a topic that we should talk about? Topic at all that you're
Might have to
currently interested in?
fairly soon.
Okay.
Yeah, how is it possible that you just said that, like, you think of a color and then your girlfriend guesses what color you thought about and she gets it right? How is it even possible? If
Yeah,
not
I know.
like that?
Dude, trust me, I know it sounds insane. I mean, I get it. To the logical, to the materialistic, rational mind, it sounds stupid. It sounds crazy. It sounds like craziness. I get it. Trust me, I get the perspective. I can empathize with that chain of logic. I get that, I can put myself in those shoes, but all I can tell you is that we can do it. We can do it. I could replicate it in front of somebody. We could do it over and over and over again. Think of different colors, and she can tell you what color's in my hand.
Well, okay, colors associate with emotion and feelings.
Yes, yeah.
So could it be the way she's holding her hands, that current emotion that she's trying to project into her hand. It has
No,
as
we're
a
not holding hands. Say
no, holding her hand up, like her body language in her hand, and you are able to pick that up.
No, see, what I'm doing is I'm in my head.
Yeah.
I have my hand up in the air. She's sitting across from me. In my head, well, not even in my head. This is hard to explain. Like, I don't really know how to explain this. You can feel like movement. Okay, have you ever tried to feel the tips of your fingertips beyond your tips of your fingertips? You can do it right now. Like, just feel as much sensation as possible and try to feel like beyond your fingertips. Like out past them. Like, can you push your awareness like out, like into the surrounding field?
So you're talking about ketamine. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if you've ever taken ketamine, but your body parts can like touch the walls and shit.
So what I'm saying is it's this concept of like chi. This is what monks have been preaching for like saying for like thousands of years, is you have chi. And this is just energy that you can move throughout your body, and it's physical. It has a physical impact on the world around you. Like,
See,
you can make it.
When you were talking about the finger thing, immediately what I thought to myself is, what if there's like a slightly heightened blood flow to the fingertips when you're thinking about that? Maybe that's
Yes,
part
there
of
is. I can feel that. I can
Yeah.
feel that.
Yeah.
The heightened blood flow.
So it's like
I can distinguish between all the sensations. So like, yeah, I feel the blood flow. That's part of it. But I can also. So what happens is I push out color from my hands, and but I picture what color I'm pushing out in my head, right? And then my girlfriend can say, "Oh, there's blue." And I'm like, "Yep, that was what I had in my head." Or, "Oh, that's yellow." Yep, that's what I was thinking. That's what I'm pushing out. But like, so when she sees auras on people, she builds this system of traits and stuff that people have that have certain color auras. Like, she sees commonalities between them. So like, every orange aura that she meets has certain traits that line up, just like this MBTI stuff. It's
Can I
the
quickly
same.
ask, is she an ENFP?
No, she's an ESFJ.
Okay, no, because I have an ENFP that's told me very similar. That she can feel aura in people and
Yeah.
see them.
I know people, and I know there's all kinds of, and you got to be careful because, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily, you got to, just like with MBTI, how it can be used badly, or you can get lost in all the, like, you put way too much information into one model, like, like you get all kinds of generalities about it. You can do the same thing with the aura stuff, so you can start creating way too generalized of a system for people with orange auras, and then you start getting lost in it, which she did for a while, but she's better now about it. But so it's just like with the MBTI type. You walk up somebody, and then so now I can't see them, but like I said, I can feel them. But I've been around for so long. Like, what we do is we play this kind of game when we're out in public, and when we meet somebody, we interact with them some, like a waiter or whatever it is, and then she turns to me and she goes, "What color aura does he have?" And I have to try and guess based just on the traits that I've learned, that I've built the model of, and I'm pretty good at it. She can just see the color.
I don't know if people would agree with this, but I just had the
Oh,
thought
I know.
that I just
sorry.
I was gonna say it, that I just had the thought that I wonder if like the point of frameworks is to develop them to the point to where you're irrevocably wrong. So then you adopt a new framework.
Yeah.
Then it forces it out of you.
I do that a lot. Or I mean, I tend to build this super complicated puzzle and put all the pieces together, and then I shatter it. Like, 'cause that was it. Like, that was the point. Like,
build it up.
Yeah. Do you have any? Could you teach somebody how to read these
Yeah,
auras
like
or how to
for
become
example,
aware of
Okay,
those?
so there are. Okay, so here's the thing. You can look up. You can just Google it, how to see auras and stuff, and there are all kinds of like, you know. Okay, but here's the thing. I can't. I think it's more than just a sensory thing because I can't see them. I can't see them. I've tried all the techniques, and I know more than just her. I know more people in my life that can see them other than just her.
are they sensors?
What? I'm sorry?
Are they
Are they
sensors?
sensors?
Yes.
So maybe sensors can, intuitives can't. Since
Yeah,
you're intuitive, then you can.
I don't know.
I'd be interested to find out if it is as strict as that. See, I'm getting excited by the framework thing again. It's
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand.
it's like
Dude, trust me. I don't think so, actually, because never mind. I know an ENTJ that can see them.
right. No. What I'm
So,
saying is like in what situations are the sensors seeing them? Which sensors aren't seeing them? Which intuitives are
Yeah.
seeing them, and why? You know.
yeah. I don't know. See, that's the thing is, see, she, like, I can't see them, but like I said, I can feel them, and she can't feel them. She just sees them, but like she can't. How do I explain? I don't even know. How do you feel? It's so hard to explain the sensation of like space, of like a vibration, like something you can come into contact with. But it's like,
It's another sense.
yeah, yeah.
You know what? Personally, fingers
Like
crossed.
intuition?
I hope I can smell ours,
No, you don't want to do that.
or maybe hear ours.
The Yeah, I know this is out there and this is just like fun talk, but so like supposedly, like again, I don't see auras, I don't know, but I've heard from a lot of different people. Some people have seen them, and then some I've read in books or accounts, certain accounts, when people like there are actually signs in people's auras and stuff when they're lying, and they can just read it, like a certain things that happen that in the colors or. Which I of course I don't know. I can't comment on that really. I don't see.
I wonder if like from an evolutionary perspective, if that would have been beneficial to have that, because I'm just trying to think of like hunter-gatherer tribes or like ancient humans having to hunt. Probably couldn't be communicating. I mean, like, you probably communicate with like eye symbols and stuff, but like, what if you're like hunting in the
Just
dark or stuff
straight
like
up
that?
body language, or straight up like their aura
Body language,
changing colors and
like
whatnot.
maybe we're perceiving them as like auras and whatnot, but maybe it was like just. I mean, chances are, I mean, if you have humanity existing for fucking how long, and then how recently has language come into it,
Mhm.
and then really complex language at that. You know, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well,
The thing with the auras are cool, but there's not like it's like with MBTI. If you can see them, that's badass. If you want to try it, if you want to like I can't see them. I've tried all the techniques, but even with me feeling them and anything, like in the end, I don't really like. It doesn't really give me much. Like you don't really. I guess because I'm just so used to it now. Or like, it is a part of your experience. It's a new like part of your experience.
Do you get more
like-
fulfillment out of MBTI or auras?
Out of MBTI, just because I'm getting more information out of MBTI. I'm getting more information out of watching people's minds play than just a sensory experience that I get when I get close to people. Like I can feel.
well, once
It's like-
we've finished,
it's like
any other
big
thoughts on this?
thing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go.
I don't know. I just think, again, okay, the only reason I'm saying all this stuff is because like I've been doing this stuff, reading on this stuff, being interested in this stuff for like years now, and I'm just telling you because I've seen my own pitfalls, not to get, just like I was saying, like Ken, what you were saying, where you kind of caught these narratives that were like could get you down. Like I've done a lot of that shit. I've done shit where I've had to recalibrate, realize that I got caught up in something that didn't matter. Like the whole aura thing. Like, yes, it sounds cool, and yes, you can look it up and try and do it, but don't like get obsessed about it. Like that's all I'm gonna like. That's my advice.
Yeah, it's like
I don't get obsessed about. Like, go ahead, Genko.
No, you go.
No, just had a little remark, nothing.
Alright.
Just go.
Because he hasn't really spoken, sorry.
Yeah, no, I just thought that was funny. It was just like, I was like, well, okay. And Hayden's like, no, fucking, you go ahead, you talk. Did you want to finish casual?
I just wanted to say, when he said don't get obsessed about it, if I don't get obsessed about it, how am I going to learn about it? Because the only way to learn about something is to...
I was gonna bring that up because there's another narrative there. I'm detecting another narrative going on in my brain when you're saying, you're trying to warn me about these pitfalls. Well, that's great. Warn me about the pitfalls all you want. Problem is, unless I fall into a few, I don't think I'm doing it right. So
Yeah, I mean you're right. I just I guess there's nothing wrong with me saying it though, because the more, at least now you're aware. You've heard me say that,
Yeah.
and maybe if
yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good. I can dig it. Yeah, again, it's like one of those things. It's like you're not wrong or bad because you brought up that thing that I already know. Because it's like, why am I? Well, it's like when we're dealing in the currency of universal truths or whatever you want to call it. Maybe that's not the right language.
I get what you're saying.
It's like sometimes it's helpful just to hear from another meatbag.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, those sort of integral things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Alright. Are we sort of done with this topic? Because I got another question for you guys.
Yeah, I'm down.
Oh, yeah.
Good.
So if you were to... How do you guys think that human consciousness came to be?
Okay. Well, okay. I think I would say human consciousness came to be with the organism that is human, but consciousness is something totally above just human. It's not just innate. It's not just a human thing.
Well, sorry, self-awareness on our level, on a human level. And not that other animals aren't self-aware, they're not self-aware of their own thoughts. I don't know if I think that's right.
Is that true though?
Well, I know that elephants and dolphins and such can after looking in a mirror enough, they can identify with themselves, and they do a test where on elephants they put like an X on their head, and then an elephant will look in the mirror, and instead of wiping off on the mirror, they'll wipe it off on themselves. So that proves that they know that is themselves. But other animals can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like gorillas can do the same thing, or if they're taught to.
Yeah. So where did our level of consciousness come from?
I mean, it's showing that right there in animals. It came before us to a degree, But I think it's a gradient. You can't just say this is human consciousness, because we are an amalgamation of all the things before us. Like, we have a reptilian brain. It's just down in the center, and we have a bunch of stuff growing over it.
Yeah, I definitely see that. But how did our human consciousness, like, how did we become aware of that stuff? Was it the brain? The brain came first, or was it a something that events that happened that forced us to become that way? Because I can see how animals could become aware of certain things, by reactions and stuff like that. But how did we, like, what in, like, especially with the whole what's the theory called? It's like the theory of like survival, like the theory where like different animals go out different ways because for different reasons, like different survival reasons. Surely you guys know what it's called.
Are you talking? I'm sorry, I had some thoughts going in my head, but was it? Are you talking about natural selection?
Yeah, natural selection. Yeah, like where in natural selection do we fit? Like how did I understand natural selection, but I don't understand how we fit into natural selection.
I'm not. I mean, of course, from a mechanical, physical, I guess, like standpoint, I don't know if anybody could point out like, oh, this is the point, this was it, or like this is it. But I will say, hopefully, this relates. I think that at one point in time, human beings were just like one consciousness where they didn't necessarily experience themselves as like individuals. Like they were like a tribe in a way, but a tribe that was like just one kind of like, but it was in like a premature way. Like, so they weren't like self-conscious. They were like group conscious, but they weren't self-conscious of the group conscious. So then the fall happens, quote unquote, where we all become self-conscious individuals destined to become the group conscious again, but newly with the added bonus of being conscious of the group conscious, being even like an evolution of...
It's like a cognitive manifestation of fractal activity.
It's like we get a new ability, but then we have to learn how to use that ability in a really basic way.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that process of evolution is happening right now, like on the planet. Like, I think it's begun
I'd agree with you on
already.
that.
Like, I think that we are, like, again, I know, I'm sorry, but I'm going to pull back to a quote from Christianity where, like Jesus was saying, look, the robbers are going to be with you. Like these times ahead are going to suck. The world is going to be in a shitty place for a while. But I'm telling you, I'm coming back, meaning this completeness, this whole consciousness is coming back. It's going to be pervading. My kingdom will be, the whole world will be this, where we are one again. So, but we have to go through this. So bear it. Walk with your cross and bear it.
So do you think that that it'll take a global understanding of this and then figure out a way to teach people this, or to help to get to this understanding?
Yeah, I think it's naturally going to unfold. It's going to happen. It's going to start the world, we always have this concept of changing the world. Like, the world. The world is me and you. Like, there is no world. It's, if I change, the world changes. If you change, the world changes. So, like, eventually, individuals will blossom, and the world will start to change. Like, individuals will... This has been happening for a long time, but I think it's going to happen on more of a mass scale, and it's already started, but it's going to happen over the next, I don't know how long. Who knows?
But it's going to take a lot longer for us, because it's so much more. There's so many more distractions, or...
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because it's like it's kind of weird. Okay, I know this is a weird image, but like birth hurts. So like there's always so much resistance before a big change. Like there's got to be pain before new life. Like I feel like the state of the world right now is like, yes, we're super distracted, we're sucked in by all this stuff going on, like there's just so much, we're bombarded by information and impressions that no other beings on this planet have ever had to deal with to the amount that we deal with information. Like seriously. Like no other beings in any point in time have had to deal with this amount of data, like every day, so there's just so many. I feel like it's part of it though. I don't have any fear about it because like if I know like I see if I am this system, if I am all this and all this is me, we're disconnected, what is there to fear? Like this whole thing is happening, and it's going to happen exactly as it happens. And why would this system that is itself kill itself? Like,
Well, we've certainly tried. Some of
Yeah.
us.
well, yes, but I mean on a total scale, like, why would, and I mean, I guess I'm not saying it couldn't, but
In order to get to that place, probably would have to be under the impression that it's other than itself. That it is not itself, therefore... Or maybe that there's some greater self that itself, maybe even referring to humanity, that there's like some greater self or some greater narrative that it's not meeting, therefore it's bad or unworthy or something like that. But I think it probably is always rooted in some sort of distinction rather than unity.
so are you saying like that's what we're in right now? You mean like the state of, or
Just distinction.
are you saying we need to realize a greater narrative or a greater?
Well, not...
I'm sorry, I was just trying to
Yeah,
really understand.
well, I mean,
your point.
we gotta recognize... Well, I mean, like, religious theology. Those are narratives. I'm talking about, like, there's a greater narrative. Like, in order for somebody to be in the frame of mind where they would want to destroy, rather than make peace with, themselves, and by extension, existence, then it's like there has to be some greater narrative that's either saying that they, as in their flesh bag, is something other, and humanity, or maybe even humanity as a whole, is something other than some greater thing or some greater standard. Therefore, they're fallen. They've fallen short. Maybe they don't deserve to exist, or just whatever. But I was saying that the problem's rooted in distinction and separation. Outer darkness, that term that gets used in the Bible. Yeah.
But could it just be what we need because of our makeup, our brain structure and whatnot, what we need to thrive, to optimally thrive?
What's that?
To have all these understandings in that way, or
to have so much contrast, you mean? Like we need the contrast?
Yeah, to have so much contrast, yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah, I believe, yeah. That's what the whole concept of like the yin and yang is without the two, the whole dance doesn't work.
And look at chemical reactions.
Yeah.
Well, when you get the chemicals reacting, do they just stay reactive? I mean, I don't know shit about chemistry, so, But my guess is that react for a while, and then at some point you get a finished product. So I think I've gotten kind of interested reading some biblical stuff. I got to expand my knowledge base because some of the like Zen Buddhist and like Hindu stuff sounds pretty interesting too. But it's like with that stuff,
It's very
like,
more. It's a lot more cut and dry. It's not so symbolical. Like the language is. I like it.
yeah. Because I remembered something, and again, me with the inability to accurately quote scripture, is like it was some verse like speaking from the perspective of wisdom, as though wisdom were an entity. It was saying about how, like that I think it was saying, like the gist of it was that God, like, travailed, or underwent, like pain to, like, birth this thing, this like wisdom or something like that. I'm like that could pretty much be an analogy for the entirety of existence. It's like it's like existence is the birth pangs of something. It's like, you're trying to bring something forth. But I think you touched on that earlier. I can't remember.
Yeah, maybe I think I get what you're saying. So like this consciousness that knows itself as being itself experiences the pain, the illusion of separation, to explore perspectives, to explore itself inside of itself, although it's never separate from itself. But it has it bursts this whole thing out of itself just to explore itself, just to have duality, have experience, have perspective, have limitations, even though it doesn't have limitations, to experience what limitation is like.
Now, here's my question. Do you think it's for the purpose of experiencing itself? And I don't want to say that's the entirety of it, but the other thing I'm hinting at is, do you think it could be possible that the undertaking of existence is to birth another perfect unity, so that there's, I don't even know if that would make sense, but have two things that are on some way bigger level that can now interact as individuals, quote unquote, in the process of working together to create a bigger whole, and it's just fractal and it just goes on. I don't know.
So it is itself, in itself it's complete, but then it like, you can say like it's split into two to create, to make itself again, like just to make another itself. But it's all contained within itself. It's all still one, even though it birthed this, even though this whole duality came about, it's all still contained within the one. The yin and yang is still inside of the circle. Like, so, I mean, I like that idea, what you're saying, like this whole process is just to mirror itself to a point of, I guess, completion, but where it's just fully itself, like all perspectives and completely realized, which it already is. It didn't need to do this.
But in that way, it's like it creates another that is whole, like neither are lacking in that way. But it's like I'm trying to think of it like, okay, if you sort of mastered this level of having these distinctions, what could it possibly look like if you have two things that are both perfect, both don't need each other, but what if there's new parameters, or maybe not even something that you could call parameters, but some other mode of interaction to where you have two, like, I guess I'll say
something
symbols.
new.
two things of perfection interacting now. They're both. I don't know if that's possible. Something could exist as both and whole, yet both whole and separate.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know we're kind of talking about the whole physical, like, creation, I think, but, like, the whole thing of Christ was, like, Christ, not he being a person, but Christ was the image of the light. So he was the exact copy of the thing itself, a perfect image, a perfect copy of it in completion. Like, it was done, it was completed in that being, or in that. So the light was the first light, being, like, I guess God, or like what you would call source, the source of all light, like, created a light that perfectly matched itself, and then all things came from that light. Like, so when Jesus, like, they always say, like, all things were created through him, being that completed copy. But I don't know. I mean, that's just what popped in my head.
Yeah, no, I mean, that, in a way, that actually explains exactly what I'm talking about. Like this, like the sort of the point of existence. I mean, not the point in its entirety, but a point of existence being a method of perfect replication, or reproduction, or something, propagation. I don't know.
But then I would question at that point, if you got to this perfect being, would you have free will? Are you almost stuck into the way of doing like,
Maybe.
not that you still wouldn't do good, but you would have to do things, like, you'd lose your free will. I could argue.
Well,
here's
the
thing,
concept of free will just kind of goes away, because where do you draw lines between I'm breathing and breathing's happening? Like, this whole idea of I am doing something goes away, because the I goes away. You surrender.
But then do you lose? Yeah, but then you surrender. But then do you lose the enjoyment you get out of something amazing after something horrible, or is it just is at that point?
Well, it just is. Why see, this sounds like, that is like the mind conceptualizing what that state would be like. But if you're in that state, and you are not in any way a separate entity, like, you have no, there's something speaking right now, but there's nothing speaking the words. This is hard to, like, grasp, but there's nothing actually saying the words. There's no owner of the words. There's just words that are coming out of it. So, like, if that's true, maybe you could experience all of this duality and still be that thing, and it all just happen. Like, there's no lines. You can be all of it.
If we're speaking to Christian theology, which I guess I'm going to continue because that's what I know, or somewhat. I don't,
just go with it.
Yeah. There's strong language used. Things like victory or glory. Strong language in reference to the grandiosity of the outcome. Where it's like, it's like, I don't know how to describe it other than, like, just, like, winning on a cosmic, on, like, a metacosmic spiritual scale. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Words are coming to mind. I'm just saying shit regardless of whether or not it has any bearing.
So you're saying, like, that's the ultimate goal. Is that what you're saying? Like, the ultimate...
I forgot what I was referencing beforehand.
Oh.
What were we talking about? What did you guys finish on before I started blabbing?
You're talking about the, like, completion, and then he said, well, then the question I would ask is, oh shit, what was it? Who said that?
I said, would you still have free will? at that
Yes,
point.
yeah, the free will came into play. And then I said that the concept of free will just goes out the window because it's an either you do have free will or you don't. It's beyond the two. It's,
But then where's the enjoyment in that? You're just sort of, I feel
well,
like my image right now is sort of, almost lemons. Like, yes, they are fighting for the most
You
greater good and what it should be, but
you're asking where the enjoyment is out of that.
yeah,
Sometimes I've heard that in the creation myth in biblical Bible, and again I'm referencing this, in that model you have, okay, there were 6 days of creation, then on the seventh day God rested. Sometimes people think maybe those aren't referring to, literal days or even actual periods of like physical time, but that they're like 7 periods where it's like the seventh day is the day of rest. Like, what's that greater? Like, if you were to expand that model outward, what would it look like? Periods of interaction, and then what's the culmination? The rest. You're saying, how do you get enjoyment out of it? Well, how do you know that the culmination isn't the period of enjoyment?
so that is like a heaven.
Because first we have distinction and stuff going on where it's like
Yeah.
it's the good and the bad, but really all that together is, in my mind, and this may be me being wrong, this is my own framework saying that the mere presence of anything less than perfect is imperfection. Having any blemish at all to speak of is imperfection. So even though we have good stuff going on now, it's still imperfect. So the rest is reaching perfection. So you're saying, well, how do you enjoy yourself? Well, maybe the parameters of what you think enjoyment is changes.
See, but,
so
but what I would associate that with is, almost like, animals, and because what I is the beauty of the human condition is we get the enjoyment because we can do the good and bad and we see the contrast, but you don't have the contrast anymore.
no, you do. So here's the thing. So you
Okay, yeah.
realize an animal is enjoying its life. It has
Yeah,
food and yeah, they're like and they're happy, like they're good. They're not. So the thing is what if you return to this state, but you were conscious of it? You return to this surrendered state of just being, but you were entirely conscious.
But then how do you make a distinction between that with our current brains?
Well, no,
who's to
because
say you don't
well,
have
you
the current
don't.
brain?
Distinctions go away.
Okay.
There aren't. You can't You can't even draw a line. You realize as soon as you try and draw a line, it's just a line that you're just trying to draw, and it's not there. It doesn't mean anything. Like this is it. This is like, I know that doesn't fucking help. Like this, it's possible. I see what you're saying. I think what you're saying is like from the perspective you're trying to model maybe what that state would be like, and it feels like you're
Yeah.
losing something. You're positing that you'd be losing
Yeah.
okay, but you still. So what if if you were nothing? Let's say right now you were absolutely nothing. Like
Yeah.
you're nothing, but you're here, but you are. You are, but you're no thing, nothing, no thing in particular, but you are. Why can you not still experience? Experience would still happen. All the emotions, the taste, the contrast, the sensory experience, all of it would still come, but you're just conscious of another like level of yourself, of your own being, but you're still experiencing all the things you were conscious of before, because you didn't lose awareness, you just expanded it. Like you just
Okay.
you just went outwards. You didn't so you don't lose what was already in your bubble. Like you don't lose that. You just
Yeah, Yeah, where I'm finding it hard to distinguish between is I'm probably saying the same thing, but
Oh, you're good.
the way I sort of see it is if you got to that point, like I like the idea of being able to get to that point and then be consciously aware of what you're doing, like and make an executive decision. But could you make an executive decision against that sort of new
Here,
perspective, that new holistic, perfect?
Well, it's not.
maybe you, Hayden, are
Yeah.
not conscious of it. But instead of for myself, instead of trying to subject this necessarily to a framework, I'm thinking to myself, okay, we have existence. I think it's safe to say that existence didn't come from void and is also careening towards void. Like,
Right. Yeah.
to my mind, I mean, maybe this is just my own limited brain capacity, but I'm thinking in my mind, there's something going on. Like, it's more than coming from nothing leading to, like, it's more than coming from nothing and then leading somewhere. It's not like coming from somewhere and then leading to nothing. It's like, if I have in my mind that it's like there's nothing on this side, nothing on that side, it's like, then what's going on here in the middle? I'm just thinking to myself, I don't know, maybe I'm biased, but I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, there's a point to the thing, or maybe not. Like, I don't know if it could be described as a point. It's like,
Okay. So
Point.
well,
I mean, that's a big question. You're saying a point to the whole creation, or a point to? I mean, that's a.
that's the thing, is I can't tackle it with a framework. So it's just something that I'm like, well, to my mind, I'm just thinking, well, we're here, so
Yeah.
it's probably going to be okay.
One thing I wanted to say, whoever was talking about I think it was Hayden, where you were saying, I think you have a model of an idea of perfection. So, like, what you're saying is, can you go against this perfect thing? Well, this perfection is even beyond the concept of perfection. So, like, there's no adversary. There's no thing to go against. Because there's no quarrel. There's no problems. There's no, like, so if you want to, gosh, like, if you're in this state, it's not in this state. If you are, you can dynamically express yourself as anything that you want. So, like, if you have this experience or something, and you find yourself, like, super, just, you're really conscious of yourself, you have some mystical experience, and then you, like, go do some drugs or drink some alcohol or go party, like, does that affect this new awareness? Or no, like, because it's beyond any experience. Like, so you can have all the normal experiences, is what I'm trying to say, because you're already it. See, what we're doing is, we're not trying to attain something. I'm trying to tell you that the ideas you have about yourself are wrong, and you're already what you're looking for. The thing you are seeking is what you're looking from. Like, the problem is the reason you can't get it right now, like, intuitively just freaking changes your, like, whole system, is because the mind still has some hold. You still have some identification with certain identities, certain ideas, certain perspectives.
Hold on. Here's my question. If you were to be in a conscious space where you could identify that you were no longer what you would consider a Hayden, then who are you? Who's asking the question? Like, in this new existence, do you think you're going to have a body? Like, this state of perfection where you're supposedly being able to, there's a potential that you could revolt against this perfection. Who's revolting?
yeah. So I do feel like I get the idea of, like, what you're saying, like I feel like I've had nowhere near it, but a similar sort of experience with acid. You're gonna really have to take acid because it is very different to mushies. where you're sort of left by yourself with no thoughts, and you're sort of with yourself and one with yourself and that. So are you more saying more with? Hmm.
Well, also be careful not to try to talk from the acid trip as being with yourself and
No,
being
no,
sort
no,
of
no, no,
vacant
no, no, no,
as the point.
not at all. No, I don't mean no, not at all, not at all. But like I'm finding it hard to distinguish. Like, okay, so what would a world look like after if everyone had this? What would a world look like?
I don't know. That is a good question. I
That's
think. Well, hold on. I think the play could still go on, but it would be a real play then. It wouldn't be a horror movie.
Mm.
But I see it as everyone would turn into, perfect, like we would just work in perfect cognition and help each other everywhere, and it would just be sort of a one being. It would come back
Yeah.
to a whole being as like another animal
Giant,
in a way.
giant organism working together. We'd become one giant like organism that just ran this shit, right? That's a, I
Mm,
mean, that's what I see.
Like
yeah.
when I try to think about the human perspective and whatnot, it's like trying to think like, what if I were in the place of a cell? What if I were a cognitively aware, like, white blood cell, and I just experienced that, and I was like, oh hey, look, this is my lifespan. I die pretty quick, but I do these things. I've never gotten to experience that before as a human brain, but here I am doing these things. Oh, look, I'm eating a virus, just stuff like that, and then I die at some point. It's like I'm trying to relate that to whatever the fuck we were just talking about. It's like
I think
on the
See where if I can would I like I feel like that's like we started as proteins, and we grew from that, became self-aware, but I feel like it's almost at that point, are you going backwards or are you going forwards?
you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere, but then are you losing, like, is it worth what you're losing?
No, because you're not losing anything. It was all a dream. That you gained anything or lost anything, it was a dream. You've
So
always been, right now, right here.
we're back
It's
a
the thing.
complete, we're back a part of nature in a way.
Yeah, yeah, you're it right now. We haven't gained anything. We haven't lost anything. You haven't went anywhere. You haven't like. Now, if you look at this body and you look at, yes, this body was born, blah blah blah, but this whole identity, this entire construction that you call you, was built. You built it over time. So put it aside for a little bit and see
yeah.
if you need it.
Hold on. Chew on that for a minute.
Mm.
You built it over time, even though you weren't aware that you built it. So, if you weren't aware that you were building it while you were building it, who was building it? It was
Oh no.
you.
So but see, that's the thing. So then you stop delineating between you and something else. So this whole system is you and it's not you. It's it. But they both work. So you almost take, so you say, I say you built it. In a way, no, you didn't build it. Like, life built it. It just happened. Your identity happened. But in a way,
You were the
you are this whole
manifestation.
system.
You're the
You're the whole
manifestation
thing.
of the thing building.
Yeah.
This
So,
thing-
like, you
this
can
thing-
see,
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you something similar to that, yeah. Continue.
so you can see yourself as, in a way, as the thing built, even though, like, you're not that thing. But, like, you can see that perspective, and you can see the perspective of the thing, like, being built, the whole construction of it over time, like, as a model, as a mental construction, accumulation, and, like, so you realize, like, oh, okay, like, that's all me. Or you don't even have to say that it's all just words. It doesn't really matter. Because then what matters is that you're centered in that knowing, in your own being. And it's not like, again, then language starts to destroy every attempt to describe it, because language in itself creates duality. So I say, you have to be in your being, which in itself is bullshit. Because there is no you being in your being. In a way, you can conceptually understand it, though. It's just, words start to destroy it. You can only get so far with them. But the words can really try and point at it. They can point all around it. And it's like, look at this, this is it, this is it. And it's so, we miss it because it's right under our nose. It's so right there for us that we look right over ourselves.
It's the same concept as us becoming self-aware and becoming self-aware of, not self-aware, becoming conscious of our subconscious. Or
okay, expand on that a little bit.
Like it's the same sort of metaphor as or becoming conscious of your narratives, where we can talk around it, but we can't put our finger on it until we get there. I don't know if that makes any sense either.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
So the thing is, I think the single most important question, anytime you're modeling, you're asking these questions, keep turning back on the one that's asking the question. Keep trying to pin down this thing that you keep speaking from, that you say is me, like this, where this whole construct is coming from. It's like, what would I be if I'm perfect, or if I was in this state? Well, I would say, what would you be if you didn't ask that question and you just sat there in silence for a while with yourself? Would you find yourself just in that state suddenly? Because you're not creating a separate, you're not looking for something as if with the assumption that you are separate from yourself.
I have the image in my head of like a person sitting alone in their room. They never go outside. They never talk to people. They're looking kind of disheveled. They're kind of stinky, stuff like that. And then it's like, when he's asking, or when he says to, try to find out like who's doing the asking and stuff like that. It's like, apart from, like, say you don't have mirrors, you're not like looking at yourself, things like that. It's like you might encounter a mirror, you might encounter somebody else, and you're provided. So some of these aha moments, I think, to me, are like moments where you catch your reflection.
Yes.
And you're like, oh,
you see yourself.
What the hell is that? You're like, what? This, it's like once you become aware, then you're like, oh, there's some work to do. But then at the same time, it's like, oh, when you're looking at yourself, you're like, well, I can see that I need to do a little bit of work here. I need to trim this up, and okay, probably, well, I got some moss growing underneath here. I probably need a shower at some point. Just like different stuff.
In a way, you become conscious of yourself, or as you are. You realize your being. That's why I love the word, more than anything, I love the term realization to describe it, because you're not attaining anything. It's not, you are realizing what's already there. It's a realization. So, okay, let's just say
I just put it as you're just noticing. Maybe you like realization better. I like notice. You just.
Okay, well, yeah, that's good too. Either one.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
It's that whole word thing again, where it's like we're basically describing the same thing. I'm just using.
It's okay, and that's okay because that's the point of like what the point that Hayden, I think it was making earlier about, but wait, we do have like different minds, like different experiences and stuff. Well, like, yes, that is true, and we do, like, sometimes for information to really click with us, it has to be put into a certain form for it to kind of pop, like line up. But that's the point of, like, so the being, when you're settled in your being, then you could talk about your being in all kinds of different ways and different words and you can jive with all of them because the language isn't conflicting anymore.
Mhm. It's like 7 something in the morning here. I'd like to continue
Yeah.
this to go on for hours and hours and hours, but I'm losing my edge. I was tired after the whole argument thing technically
Yeah.
yesterday at this point.
Yeah, I feel that.
And we just kept going like the Energizer Bunny. We just kept going and going and going, and now I'm finally starting
Well,
to run
I
out of
think
some steam.
this conversation was for sure meant to happen. I mean, it's just because, I mean, that's what happens, so. But I mean, it was obviously a good conversation.
See, my mindset I'm in right now, it's like, oh, meant to happen. That's, I said it meant to. So instead of getting all anal and stuff, I just said to myself, well, how do I want to put it? This conversation happened. That's how I want to say it.
Yeah.
It happened. And I like that. It's not even like a deflecting thing. It's just like this anger or this stipulation or this distinction, this, hey, this thing that I could get angry at or agitated with. I'm just like, yeah, I see that. That's a possibility. I'm not disregarding that. But I'd like to try this out.
All we did was sit in a circle, and we each had a mirror, and we just kept pointing it at each other. Like, see yourself? That's what happened.
It's good stuff. And I think that about ends the recording. It's probably going to take a couple of hours to get that done with, but gold, I say. There's a lot here. This was one of my favorites. I enjoyed this. Thanks, Yubi and Hayden, for doing most of the talking.
Very good.
Very welcome.
Thank you, guys.
I definitely
Thank
will do it
you.
again.